Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fantastic Stephen with me, and I'm going to ask him the question I ask absolutely everybody that's a guest. Hey Stephen, why did you become a carnivore?
I used to, when I was a teenager, my dad used to work away a lot. I used to run around with a gang. I used to get in loads of trouble. I used to be drinking, taking drugs, chasing women, burgling shops, playing the world from school, shoplifting, gambling. And this was because, I didn't have a strong hand to keep us in line. My mother couldn't control us and she was at work all the time. So that carried on right through my teens. And when I was 15, I got expelled from school, and it coincided with my dad starting his own scaffolding company. So my dad threw us a pair of overalls, says, "You're going to work tomorrow." And that was that. I was in the construction industry. Well, by 20, I had 2 children, and I was working as a scaffolder. Well, back in the 80s, there wasn't always work. And when there wasn't work, I used to drift back in with the friends who used to go burgling shops and stuff for money. But then through my 20s, like, there was work all the way through, so I just went to work as a scaffolder. And then on a weekend, the side of us that didn't leave was, the partying side. And I used to go out on a weekend and still carried on with the drinking and taking drugs, rolling, getting into trouble still on a weekend, getting arrested, things like that. But then when I was 28, it's a period that I call when hit the fan. And it was like a 6-year period, a series of events that just turned my life upside down and sent us in a whole other direction. So first of all, I had an accident in a pub with a window, an incident in a pub with a window, and I got half of my nose severed. So I got rushed to Salisbury Hospital, but they couldn't operate because of the alcohol and the cocaine that was in the system. So the next day they done the operation, they sewed the bit back on. It was hanging by a thread. But then 2 weeks later, it all went black, so I had to have it removed. So that just totally destroyed my confidence and changed us as a person. So then I went through a series of operations performed again by surgeons at Salisbury Hospital. They were going to attempt to repair the damage, and they were taking skin from my head and bone from my head. And the operation was unsuccessful. So then I was left with like tons of more scarring, which you can probably see there. So I was left with more damage from the operations than had actually happened in the incident itself. So I finally went to Jimmy's Hospital in Leeds. Surgeons there successfully performed the operations to rebuild my nose. And what the first consultation I had, the surgeon said, "Do you mind if I let my students come in to listen to what I've got to say?" I said, "No, let them come in." He says, and he pointed to the scar on my head, and he says, "This is why you never try these outdated operations." He says, "They rarely work, and if they do, they leave a terrible mess." So anyway, he done the work successfully to rebuild my nose, and things started to look up a little bit. But then in the year 2000, I sort of went back to my party lifestyle, but not as heavily as I was before the accident. It was more due to my close friends trying to get us out of the house. And I was starting to go in my shell. And I'd split up my girlfriend and my chair, my family and stuff like that. I think things started to look up a little bit. I got a job as a door security in Newcastle. But then in the year 2000, I'd been having trouble with my guts. And I went to the doctors and he referred us to I'd been passing blood. And he referred us to a consultant. And they'd done a colonoscopy, and they said I had severe Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. And I'll never forget the surgeon. He seemed to take great pleasure in saying you'll be on medication for the rest of your life. This is a genetic disease. There's no cure. And make no mistake about it, Mr. Williams, this will get you in the end. Those were his words. And I was always, in spite of the party lifestyle I used to lead, I always used to, attempt to eat healthy. And I was always training in a local gym. I trained with weights since I was about 19. But I thought to myself, well, these are doctors and they know what they're talking about. So for the next 2 years, I took the medication. I just got steadily worse. And by the end of the 2-year period that I was taking the medication for, I had developed a lot of additional symptoms, skin issues, headaches, fatigue, and I started searching for answers on the internet. I just got myself a computer back in 2002, end of 2003. I started 2003, and I tried a couple of things. Specific carbohydrate diet by Elaine Gottschall was one of the things that I tried, and I got some success with it. But it was minimal. And then a friend of mine who owned a gym, I went into the gym one day and he said, he was all excited and he said, I've got this video, you need to see it. And the video was called Flatten Your Abs Forever by a guy called Paul Check. And he told us to ignore the cheesy title as it had no bearing on the information that was contained in the video. So I went home, stuck the video in, and I couldn't believe what I was, what I was seeing. I had this guy called Paul Check, and he was talking about the dangers of supermarket food, and talking about gut inflammation and all kinds of things. But every time he was coming up with different facts, there was books coming up on the bottom of the screen what he was recommending you should read. One of the books was called The Metabolic Type Diet. So, and another one was Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston Price. So anyway, I started buying all these books and consuming the information. And I'd done a metabolic typing test, found out I was a protein type. So I started eating like higher protein, told you to avoid starchy carbohydrates, and only eat low starchy vegetables. And I got big improvements. The improvements were rapid, and it made us become I ended up going into the course and becoming a metabolic typing advisor. And then I thought, this medication, it's not doing us any good. And one day I just thought, I just threw the lot in a bit of rage. I just threw the lot in the bin. Then I started thinking to myself, well, what if I start doing more of these courses? What if I start? Maybe I could change my career, get out of the scaffolding industry. So that's what I did. I started doing correspondence courses with Paul Check. Then I did a personal training course. I became a personal trainer, and I started reading books and doing workshops on nutrition, health, training, spirituality, all kinds of subjects. And really, that video, what I got off Paul Check, that really was a turning point in my life. There was 2 turning points. The night that I had the incident with the window, and then the day that I seen the Paul Check video just changed the whole direction of my life. So I mean, this path's been it's been a 20-year path. This was in 2003 when this started. So I had great success with getting rid of all the symptoms for long periods of time. But I would keep having flare-ups. And during all this time, I went on from, I became a personal trainer. I sold my house. I went to London to get experience in a personal training gym. I came back with my tail between my legs about 6 months later. I went back into the construction industry to generate money because I realised from working in this gym in London, the gym manager, you were paying them rent every week, and you weren't getting any wages. You had to go and generate your own business. So it was like a Shark Tank. Well, they were taking on more and more trainers all the time, and I was more interested in delivering quality. Well, they were more interested in pushing us to get quantity of clients. So it didn't really suit us. And it was then I decided that, you know what, I don't want to work for a gym, like I want my own gym. So, like I say, I came back from London with my tail between my legs. But I went back into the construction industry for a while. I worked as a scaffold manager for a company called SGB to generate the funds to to start my own gym and to carry on educating myself. Because all these courses, workshops, and seminars, they cost a lot of money. And by this time, I'm eating everything organic. And I'm sort of doing the opposite of what everybody around us is doing. I'm telling people I eat organic. I don't drink tap water. And you get I was getting funny looks from day one, So I carried on in this vein, and then I started studying. I went from Paul Check, then I switched over to Charles Parkman. And I started studying under Charles Parkman because I wanted to be a strength coach, because I was always into lifting weights and stuff like that. I used way back in 1996, we were getting the muscle magazine, Muscle Media. And I used to always go to Charles Parkman's column. They always give you always got really good information. So I ended up studying with him and became a strength coach. 2011, I made the jump, and I started my own little personal training gym, and my friend had a room underneath his business, and he told us I could just use it. So this coincided with my son getting out of jail. My son had been in jail for violence, and that's another story there, because I hadn't been in my son's life from when he was a baby until he was 11. And then when I'd split up with my other girlfriend and my family, I made contact again. This was and I made contact again, and we went on a family holiday together in Mallorca, and I vowed that I would repair the damage that had been done of me not being there, because I know how I went off the rails when I was a kid, because my dad wasn't there, because my dad was away working. He didn't abandon us. So over the years, as Sean became a teenager, I obviously didn't get into his life soon enough to stop him going down exactly the same path that I went down. And he ended up fighting with a lad in the street in the early hours of the morning, and he ended up getting jailed for 2.5 years. So, but I thought when he was in prison, now I started sending him books. I thought, right, now's a chance to try and get into his head. And I still remember I sent him 3 books, but one of them that really sticks out what I remember was Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And I sent him that book. And then when he got out of prison, like I say, I had the gym. So now we had a reason to come and see us and come and visit all the time. He was getting free training, free coaching. So basically, he just started training with me, and as the years went by, and he started learning more and more about training, and he's the assistant coach in the gym now, and he's totally turned his life around.
Yes, that's fascinating about your son, actually. So how does that work? Because you were much older than him when you came into it. So have you got anything else to say about that?
Well, I started uncovering this information and applying it to my own life when I was 36. My son got out of jail, I think, when he was 24. So I started ramming it into his head at 24. Now my son's coming up to 36. And his son, my grandson, little Sean, was starting to go down exactly the same route as I went down and as my son went down, because my son found weed in his pocket. And I said to my son, I said, you need to get a hold of him. We need to put some discipline into his life. So he's been grounded for the last 10 months. He shed 2.5 stone. He follows a full carnivore diet, just like we do. He trains 6 times a week. He trains in my gym, strength and conditioning. 3 times a week, MMA. The MMA coaches have said he's got a promising career ahead of him in MMA. And we all get up. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to start my day. By 8 o'clock, I've won the day. He gets up at 4 o'clock, trains, eats, reads some books, and then goes to school. We're basically told him to ignore much of what he gets told at school. But your original question was, when did I start Carnivore? Well, in 2004, obviously I'd done metabolic type. They told you to eat high protein, and I did that, got a great deal of success. In 2008, I read a book by Jonas van der Plat, and it was called We Want to Live. And he had a cure cell of multiple diseases, eating raw meat. So for a month, for a full month, I was eating raw meat, raw beef, raw pork, and raw chicken. All the things that I've been told that you get salmonella if if you eat those things. It didn't really improve me. I didn't feel any different from eating cooked meat to what I did from eating raw meat. The only thing I would say that was different was it seemed to be a little bit easier to digest. So I only stuck that for a month. I couldn't keep up with it. And also I had I think the programming, the really strong brainwashing that you need vegetables for fiber, and you need vegetables for the anti-cancer properties. That was really strong in me. And there was a little voice in my head saying, "Oh, you want to get back to eating your vegetables and stuff like that," So, like I say, I lasted a month with that. I tried a ton of different ways of eating, but I always used to fall back to the default way of high protein, saturated fat, and low starchy vegetables. And I got into in 2012 after I became a level 2 state strength coach under the Poliquin system, and through Charles Poliquin and looking at all the old time strongman stuff, I became aware of a guy called Louis Simmons, who was the owner of Westside Barbell. So from late 2012, I got heavily into powerlifting and using the Westside system, both with myself and with my clients. And then I came across the vertical diet, which is Stan Efford, and he's another powerlifter. And I started using his diet, which was it was the same high protein, but you could eat white rice and stuff with this, and small amounts of orange juice and things. And me thinking then was, well, you need to take some carbohydrates if you want to do well at powerlifting. So I went down that road for a long while, and all the way through this time I'm talking about, right up to 3 or 4 years ago, I would be clear of all symptoms for long periods, but then for no reason at all, I would just have I would have a flare up, and all through all these flare ups and everything, I never ever took my foot off the pedal with the Westside, with the Westside system, with the way I was living my life. Like, my philosophy was like, I'll either adapt or I'll die, and I was keep adapting, to be fair, and I was getting over the flare ups and stuff. And then I've probably skipped loads out, but then I think it was 3 years ago, I used to follow a guy called, I was on Instagram from 2015, and I became aware of a guy called Sean Baker, and I was watching his posts, and he was the same age as me. I was thinking, he's a big guy, him, I always sort of gravitated towards those type of manly guys, no nonsense guys, because I'm a no nonsense kind of fella myself. And he was a doctor, though. He wasn't just He wasn't just a meathead. He could talk the talk as well. And he was talking about the science behind the carnivore diet and about the greatest study of, if you want to look at a study in nutrition, just look at human evolution, which coincided with Weston Price's work, which I never ever really veered away from, apart from when I was on the vertical diet. I was eating carbohydrates and stuff. So then in I can't remember the dates. I'm sure it's 3 years gone March when I bought the carnivore diet, and I'm the type of guy I'll just buy the book or I'll look at the resource and I'll immediately jump as I'm the I don't need to digest all the information first before I start putting it into practice. So as soon as I sent for the book, I just started eating meat straight away, just meat on its own. And then from there, I started doing more studying the carnivore diet. I started getting more books. I got Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code, and like numerous books since. Now I always like looking at old books and stuff as well. So from 3 years gone March, I've had no vegetables. I've eaten nothing but animal products. And from the day I went carnivore, I've had no symptoms of inflammatory bowel disease. However, I was still my diet consisted of a lot of beef, bacon, raw dairy from a farm nearby, raw milk, raw cream, eggs. So I said that all inflammatory bowel symptoms vanished. But I still had symptoms of other things. Like I still had skin, I would still have skin breakouts. I would still get headaches. I would still have energy issues and stuff like that. Low energy and things. So I would always be experimenting. So then I took the milk out because of the lactose issue. And then I started consuming just the raw cream, which I loved. I was big gallons of the raw cream. But like I say, I'm the type of guy, I'm constantly digging for answers, because my philosophy is you're here to become the best you can be. And you're here to heal yourself and get over all your problems and then show other people how to do the same. So all the way through this 20-year period, even though I fell off the wagon many, many times and went back to smoking weed, went back to binge drinking on occasion, I've always got back on the wagon and always got back on this road of self-improvement and digging for information. So obviously I became aware of many more doctors, carnivore doctors like Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Anthony Shafee, Dr. Paul Mason, and I started consuming all their information. And I started to learn that eggs could be causing problems, pork could be causing problems, dairy definitely was causing problems, as was coffee. So as of January 1st this year, I think it's about day 100, we're coming up to day 180 this year. All I've ate is beef mince, salt and water.
And what's the results been? The
results have been absolutely amazing. Everything's gone away. Now I came on this by chance, after I've consumed all this information running up to the new year, last year, I was really heavily into Dr. Paul Mason, Anthony Shafee, Ken Berry. What I found out of Dr. Paul Mason was if you have an autoimmune condition, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, you're susceptible to 25 other autoimmune conditions. And for inflammatory bowel disease to be present, there's 3 things got to be in place. First of all, you've got to have the right parents. In other words, the right genetics. Secondly, you've got to develop leaky gut. In other words, something's caused, put a hole in your gut, some kind of food that you've ate has ended up putting a hole in your gut. And the third thing is that you're eating foods that are leaking into the system and causing an autoimmune reaction. And he mentioned that these foods are like, so if you've got inflammatory bowel disease, he says you should live. In fact, if you've got any autoimmune condition, because you've probably got leaky gut, you want to eliminate pork, dairy, coffee, chicken. And basically only eat meat from ruminant animals.
I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, that's like a 23-year history there off the top of your head. That's really good. I mean, one of the things I want to commend you for is sticking with it and continuing to research. Because when I do a lot of coaching, people get reasonably happy. And there was a point where you said, you know, all my sort of digestive issues, bowel issues went. Well, a lot of people might have thought, well, that's it. That's as far as they go. But you didn't. You thought, oh, maybe there's some other things I'm eating that are causing me the other issues, like the skin issues, the fatigue. And of course, I do use examples like you in my coaching, where I say to some people with very bad autoimmune, you've got to go pretty strict. That doesn't mean forever. You can always experiment in the future. You know, if you do I think you said 180 days there of pretty much a lion diet, beef, salt and water, but that doesn't mean forever.
It's actually a lot more strict than the lion diet, which I'm going to get into, because I joined Dr. Anthony Shafee's Carnivore Challenge group on Christmas Day. Believe it or not, I was digging on Christmas Day for information, you know, like sitting on my phone in my mother's house, just looking for stuff. And I noticed that Dr. Shafee had a Carnivore Challenge group. So I joined that, and I just started eating accordingly immediately. But I incorporated Dr. Paul Mason's information, and I just went totally, I went totally beef. And the reason I went totally mince was because the price of meat's going up. You know, it starts getting really expensive. You start eating steak every meal. So anyway, I started eating beef, salt and water, just beef mince. And after now, I ditched coffee at the same time on New Year's Day. Now I used to love me coffee. I used to love me, me Machu Picchu organic black coffee. You know, I still miss it now. So what I did was substituted the coffee with cups of hot water, because my mother used to give us, she used to drink hot water herself when I was a kid for a bad stomach. And she'd give it to me when I had a bad stomach. And on occasion, I swear that it took me bad stomach away. So I thought, well, I'm going to miss a hot drink with a coffee. So I'm going to start having hot water instead. So I've got a filter there, and I've got hot filtered water. And that was that. So then I was still getting like rumbles and bloating. There was still seemed to be like an underlying issue, even though my skin was cleared up. My headaches had went. There was still something that was, it was just something underlying. I knew that I need to sort this out. I need to get to the bottom of this as well. I'm one of these people that get to the bottom of every fucking problem there is. I don't care what it is. Like I'm really determined, and discipline is not a problem to me. Because after all the shit I went through, with the shit hit the fan, that 6-year period of my life, and the years after, like I felt as though I'd been robbed of a big portion of my life, because it had destroyed, my confidence, and I had low self-worth issues and everything after that. So I was always like on a quest to get my life back. So I wanted to get upon this as well. So I posed a question in the group to Dr. Anthony Shafee, and his reply was, you might be one of the few people. Now, he didn't know I was only eating beef mince, salt, and water. He said, you might be one of the few people who need the Salisbury diet. I was like, the Salisbury diet? And anyway, what I found out was the Salisbury diet was, there was a guy in the 1800s called Dr. Salisbury from America. And he came up with a diet called the Salisbury steak. And it was like minced steak, minced lean, very lean beef with all the gristle taken out, because some people have problems even digesting the gristle. So I went and bought his book. His book is The Relation of Alimentation and Diseases. That's it there. Alimentation just means digestion, but it's a reprint, and it's really hard to read. There's like print missing, and it's really hard to read. So there's another book out. What must I do to get well? And she wrote this book for people in the UK to make them aware of the Salisbury diet and the success Dr. Salisbury had with curing all kinds of people of serious disease with the so-called Salisbury steak, which was minced beef, but the beef had to be very lean. So I approached my butcher. I told him I go to my butcher and I get 10 to 12 kilos of mince every week. And I said to mince, I need it to be leaner. I need you to take it from a leaner part of the animal. So he said, right, I'll start taking it from the neck. I think he takes it from the neck of the animal now. And this beef is really, really lean. And hey, presto, everything went away. And I've literally now felt better in decades than I do now. So it's now dear, like I say, it's nearly 6 months now. It's nearly a full 6 months. Well, there's been the type of person who has no problem with discipline. I'm thinking about doing an experiment on myself and doing it for a full year, and saying like I had beef, water, and salt for a full year.
Have you told Dr. Chafee that you're getting good results from his advice?
Well, I'm in his group. I'm not in. You've got to join every month to go on his challenge. So I'm not in that group anymore. But I am a member of his Patreon channel. So I will be. What I do is I go in when I've got a question, and I get on the calls when I've got a question about something.
Oh, I might mention it. We're doing a 24-hour live stream in July. On the 9th of July, we're starting, and Anthony Chafee's doing the first 3 hours. And I will get onto that subject because, this is golden, really, because there are so many people out there. I'm going to really over-egg this because people don't go as far as you, and they settle. And I understand that, to be honest. If you've had 20 years of bowel issues and Crohn's and indigestion and that goes, you might think, do you know what? I can suffer the headaches. I can suffer the fatigue. And I get that. I really do. But I think just going deeper and deeper into it. And like you say, there are people that have problems with. Oh, I need to say this for the American, Canadian people. Minced beef is ground beef. That's all it is. But in the UK, we call it mince. Like it's minced up. Anyway, yeah, go on. Sorry, Stephen.
I mean, I can understand people, only getting part of the way and saying, I'd be happy with that. And it's because there's a lot of we've been brainwashed, since we were kids to believe that the doctors know best. Well, I know for a fact now that the vast majority of the doctors don't know best, and that the food pyramid actually causes disease.
Well, this is it. I mean, yeah, and I think more and more people are coming to this way of thinking because you were told, as I was told when I was on the way to being diabetic, once you get that, it's chronic progressive, you never get rid of it. Load of rubbish, of course. You were told that your digestive issues, you could be on meds for the rest of your life. Here you are, and you're not.
And I was like, I always used to follow what the doctor said. And then when I started educating myself, I became angry because I've always been like a bit of a non-conformist. Always went my own way. That's how I got into trouble at school. Was I just didn't have any interest at all about what they were trying to, the data they were trying to run. I just wanted to go out and have an adventure. Yeah, I wanted challenges and I wanted adventure, and that's how I ended up getting into trouble. So I've always been like a non-conformist, and like, I just thought I've done a much better. I've got this for myself, and I've done what the doctors said was impossible. I've cured myself of all these problems. I've even had people arguing on the World Carnivore Forum, saying that I'm not cured, that and I'm only in remission. But if, like, I see you posted it as well. If you look at the word cure in the dictionary, it's somebody who was ill who then became healthy.
Absolutely, yes. I'm going to pick you up on one thing that made me laugh out loud, but I don't do it out loud because the camera then goes to me and ruins the interview. But you said about the tap water and getting funny looks. I can remember giving up tap water 9 years ago, and I still get funny looks. But as soon as you read up what's in tap water, if you've got half a brain, you would never have that stuff again. I mean, just that will help some people get well, I think. What I like about your history is, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, like, the vast majority of people don't think. Bob Proctor said 2% think, 3% think they think, and 95% would rather die than think.
Yeah. I was going to say, a testament to your history is, you've tried everything, things like the vertical diet and doing this, reducing carbs, high protein. So anyone that says, oh yeah, he got to carnivore, but he hasn't tried this, that, and the other, you've tried it all, haven't you? Really? Yeah. And and definitely you're an all or nothing person. That's really clear. You don't sort of dabble in it, you go for it. So this thing about, oh, he didn't do it right, or he didn't try it for long enough, that's nobody could argue with your case that carnivore has been the thing that you needed to do, but you needed to be very strict. And I think I'm going to take my hat off to Anthony Chafee, because he's one of the nicest guys out there, one of the hardest working, and he does bring up stuff that many other people don't. You also mentioned Paul Mason and Ken Berry, same thing, really good sources of information. Sean Baker, of course, so a great history. We won't talk about Paul Saladino because he's giving in his badge and his gun in, hasn't he, really? But, at the time, he had some great info. I'm not going to get into a negative thing here. So practicalities then. Are you eating once a day, twice a day? How are you doing this?
I eat 3 times a day. And I count what I eat. What I find with me is, if I because I love fat. If I've got a free rein, to eat until you're satisfied, I'm going to start piling the fat down. And what I know is, if you're eating a lot of fat, you'll speed up your bowel movements. Like, so if you're getting diarrhea on the carnivore diet, you just cut back on your fat, and it hardens your stools up a little bit. So I found that out for myself. But also I found out that if I do eat too much fat, I seem to get a few skin issues as well. So
yeah, I think this craze for extra fat is good for some people, but absolutely it's very individual. I'm not one of these that says you have got to have 80% fat, 20% protein. I don't think that's particularly good advice, actually.
And also, like, I like being in good shape. So, like, I'll look at what my calorie output is, and I'll hit around that, and I find if I'm eating mince, I don't even need to add dripping.
That's right.
They raise a shop with the lean beef, and now and again I'll have a little bit of dripping, when I go over a little bit. But I'm eating at the moment. I've experimented. I've been up to like, I think I've had nearly 2 kilos of meat per day. That was too much for me. There's a few days where I've been 1,700. Most of the time, it's 1,400 to 1,500 grams of the 1.4 to 1.5 grams of the lean beef.
Brilliant. I love the fact you're weighing it rather than talking about other stuff. That I like that very basic approach. What about training then? Because some people train fasted, some people don't like training fasted. What's your regime?
There's no need to train fasted, because a carnivore diet is fasting is like, it just mimics a carnivore diet. So if you're in, I don't do well with fasting.
Now, how often do you train them?
I train 6 days a week.
And you're a power lifter now, or a strength coach?
Yeah, I'm into heavy lifting, but at the moment I'm repairing my knees. So I haven't squatted for 4 months, but I'm on my way back to that. So my training at the moment is, I would say, like, on my body, it's still like, heavy power. It's not powerlifting based, but I still like the big numbers. At the moment, my lower body training is like movement based and rehab based, but it's going to go back to the heavy lifting for sure.
And you offer coaching online, do you, or just face to face?
I'm just starting to get into the online coaching now. So, but I've got a gym obviously where I do group classes.
Okay, so I'm going to have links in the description down below. So if people want to contact you,
probably just follow us on Instagram. That's where I'm going to be sharing my story and offering me training, which is a radical strength coach.
Okay, I'm going to ask a final question, because I do sort of 40-minute interviews. If someone was on the fence about carnivore, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would just tell them to go for it, because eating meat is the very reason that we got here. It's how we got here. And if you lived in the northern hemisphere, the ground was frozen in the winter. So if you didn't eat meat, you wouldn't have survived. It's the most nutritious food on the planet. And the very day that I took plants out of my diet was the day that everything went away.
Wow, that was a fabulous interview. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you like that sort of thing, I recommend you watch this one next.
That's the end.